Yesterday, I went on a blind date and ran into a complete lunatic. He claimed I'd set 3 marriage conditions, including a 500,000 yuan dowry, only to then say 550,000 would work too. He boasted about offering me a house and a car, but then insisted I had to be a virgin and get a premarital health check. I just can't figure it out. What's the point of a health check? Why the fixation on virginity? Does he think the dowry is some grand prize? Health check. That's absurd. If a girl asks for a dowry, does she really have to prove herself with a medical certificate? This guy's outrageous new demand left me dumbfounded. His explanation, though, was straightforward. He said the dowry is an ancestral tradition. If girls want to stick to tradition, then guys should too. According to him, tradition dictates that a lavish sedan chair carried by 8 bearers is for a refined lady from a noble family, a formal marriage is for a virtuous wife and good mother, a generous dowry is for a pure and flawless woman, and the tedious 3 go-betweens and 6 rights matchmaking process is for a cultured, reasonable lady. So, he concluded, if a girl demands a dowry, it's only fair for the guy to request a premarital health report. Perfectly logical, right? I was livid. What kind of reasoning is that? And to throw out such a ridiculous demand. Who does he think he is?
Man, if your boyfriend asked you to do a premarital health check before marriage, would you be willing?
Woman. No way, I definitely wouldn't be. I'm not really willing, I guess that I absolutely wouldn't agree to it.
Man, so why not?
Woman. If he doesn't trust me, I feel like there's no point in staying together. Getting married would just feel like a sign of his distrust toward me, right? Since he's chosen to be with me, he shouldn't care about my past. I think it's especially disrespectful to girls. What I was like before, that's in the past. What I'm like after being with you, that's what matters going forward. The experiences we share together. Why care about what I was like before? Besides, it's not like I've dated a bunch of guys. Some people are just stubborn, but in today's society, this stuff is pretty normal. There are even cases of getting pregnant before marriage. Cohabitation is nothing compared to that. If a guy truly likes a girl, he wouldn't demand that she do something like this for him. If you're not a virgin, don't ask for a dowry. In many places, the blind date market has seen girls demanding dowries. And the guys, they're not just asking for premarital health checks in response. Some are even saying that if a girl isn't a virgin, she shouldn't expect a dowry at all. But when the girls on these dates hear this, they're quick to call out the guys for being outrageous. The guys, though, argue that since girls always say dowries are traditional, well, tradition has always been about a luxurious sedan chair carried by 8 bearers for a refined lady, a formal marriage for a virtuous wife and mother, and a hefty dowry for a pure, unblemished woman. If we're talking tradition, don't the guys' demands make sense too? So, is what the guys are doing really over the top? Do you know how important premarital checks are in Beijing these days? For 90s kids getting married in Beijing, the concept is premarital check first, dowry second. Guys might not mind the dowry, but the premarital check, that's non-negotiable. What's the big deal with a premarital check, you ask? There's this key indicator in the report called GPA, and it hides a huge secret. Tell those unmarried guys in the comment section to save this. It'll be useful for them. Here's the breakdown in GPA. G stands for the number of pregnancies, P stands for the number of deliveries, and S stands for the number of abortions. With this info, you can know everything about your girlfriend, down to the core. You can feel totally confident marrying her and getting that certificate. But there's zero privacy left. To me, it's simple. A blank sheet matches a blank sheet. A newspaper matches a newspaper. Girls who respect and love themselves are the ones who protect themselves best. And guys who respect and cherish girls are the ones who'll find true love. Hi, over here our custom is a dowry of 380,000 yuan.
You've been to my company today, you've seen the setup, 3,000 square meters of pure class. Forget 380,000. If we get along well, I'd throw in an extra 200,000, no problem.
Alright, that works for me.
Hold on, don't get too excited just yet. I've got a couple of questions for you. First question, can you accept a premarital GPA check? You know, the health check thing.
No way, that's not happening.
If you can't handle it, I'll knock 100,000 off the dowry.
What's that supposed to mean? If you can accept it, I'll add 100,000. No issue there.
Fine, then second question. Have you ever lived with someone? Be honest, because if you don't tell me, I can check it out myself by morning and find out.
Yeah, I had one relationship like that about 2 years or so.
How many guys have you dated? 3? Then we're not a match. I'm out.
What's that supposed to mean? I've dated 3 people, that's not a lot. And what, are girls with a cohabitation history suddenly trash or something?
You lived with someone for 2 or 3 years? What's the difference between that and a second marriage? You've done everything you're supposed to do, maybe even stuff you weren't supposed to. All that's missing is a kid and a certificate, right? So why should I be the one buying a car, a house, and shelling out 300,000 or 500,000 to marry you? Your first love probably spent a few dozen bucks at a cheap motel to get the full experience. Your exes paid a couple hundred a month for you to cater to them. Why's it my turn to foot the bill now?
I was young back then, okay? Who hasn't believed in love at some point? Later I realized those guys were jerks, and in the end I didn't marry them, did I?
Oh, so you believed in love when you were young, but now with me you don't? Now it's all about houses, cars, and cash?
What about you? Don't you have a cohabitation history too?
Yeah, I do. That's why I'm not asking for a house or a car. Why is there a dowry? Why does it have to involve a matchmaker? The dowry itself is a tradition. You want to talk about tradition with me? The grand sedan chair carried 8 people, and it was for a refined lady from a prominent family. That's what a proper marriage meant. Marrying a virtuous wife and good mother. Sending off a groom to marry meant taking a woman of purity and integrity. That's the real tradition. But when it comes to the dowry, tradition suddenly comes back into the picture. Yet when it's about the bride's dowry from her family, tradition seems to vanish. So let's circle back. Why are you unwilling to do a premarital checkup? Nowadays, when people get married, the premarital checkup comes first, and the dowry comes second. In some places they even say outright, if she's not a virgin, don't bother with a dowry. The reasoning is simple, spending a fortune to marry someone pure and untouched. Of course, we don't need to obsess over this idea of perfection. It's about mutual understanding, right? Just do a premarital checkup. It's about taking responsibility for yourself. Both men and women should do it. A clean slate looks for another clean slate, right? There's a metric in the checkup called GPA. G stands for the number of pregnancies, P for the number of deliveries, and A for the number of abortions. That's it. So why are you unwilling to do it? Honestly, the moment you refuse a premarital checkup, the results are already clear. It's like when I go to buy a second-hand house. I don't mind if it's a bit old. What I'm afraid of is the agent hiding the fact that it's a haunted house. Let me tell you, if she's not a virgin, I won't accept it. Is that your bottom line? Yes, it is. Because a relative once introduced me to a girl, and after spending some time with her, I realized she was really wild. When I asked around, I found out she'd had multiple abortions. There's a saying online, isn't there? A woman who's had an abortion is like a dead house. You can't want it. And me? I've been single my whole life, always kept myself clean and upright. I just can't accept this. A clean slate looks for a clean slate. A newspaper looks for a newspaper. I don't think that's too much to ask, do you?
你要28万彩礼是吧？可以，我要求做婚检，做亲子鉴定，这也算是对我一个保障，不过分吧？
哎，哪个正常男人会提这种要求？
哎，难道一个男的连娶的媳妇儿是不是干净的，孩子是不是自己亲生的，连这点要求，这个资格都没有了吗？
有病吧！我看你压根不是诚心找对象的。
没顺着你的想法就是不诚心啊！那你们女人嫁人就是要高价彩礼，说是保障，那我们男人做婚检、做个亲子鉴定也是要保障呀，对吧？你就急眼了，什么都是你们女人说了算，凭啥呀
？If she's not a virgin, I won't consider her.
I see you're from 94. Working a high-tech job. With a fully paid house and car. With such excellent qualities. There must be plenty of girls wanting to get to know you.
I only have one requirement. I want someone who's been single since birth. With no experience in relationships or intimacy. I'm willing to spend a fortune to marry. So of course I want a pure and flawless bride. Young people these days are too casual. Moving in together at the drop of a hat. I'm not a casual person. So I hope the girl is just as principled and keeps herself pure.
Requiring a virgin for marriage. Do you think that's outrageous? Lately we've been getting more and more clients at the shop. And the variety of demands they come up with. has really surprised me. Now here's another one with a virgin complex. This client said that when it comes to marriage, he'll only consider a virgin. If she doesn't meet this condition, he's not interested at all. First I thought, this is absolutely ridiculous. It's 2024. How are there still people out there demanding their partner be a virgin for marriage? But no matter what, we've got to at least hear out their reasons, right? After digging deeper, I learned this guy was born in '98, a lifelong bachelor from the start. He's only 1.73 meters tall, but he's pretty good looking. He's from Taiwan originally, works in the construction industry, makes about 150,000 yuan a year, and owns a car and a house. When it came to why he insists on a virgin, he gave his reasons. First, he admitted he has a virgin complex himself. He sees marriage as something incredibly sacred. So even though his own conditions are pretty decent, he's stayed single this whole time. He said, either I don't start at all, or I go straight to marriage. Second, he feels that if the other person is a virgin, probably means she doesn't have some messy, regrettable past. Plus, he's a virgin himself, so he thinks if she isn't one, it'd feel like he's getting the short end of the stick. Initially I thought this demand was a bit absurd, but after hearing him out, I started to understand a little. After all, he's holding himself to the same standard, so expecting the same from the other person doesn't seem that unreasonable to me. Everyone's got their own choices, right?
There's a particularly explosive phenomenon popping up these days. If you're not a virgin, then don't even think about asking for a bride price. A lot of guys are saying that back in the day this custom was aimed at daughters of wealthy families. It was a way for the groom to show his sincerity. I'm willing to put up some money to reassure her and her family. But in today's society, the situation's changed. Sure, the woman can demand a bride price from me, but shouldn't you also bring something to the table to prove your sincerity? Some guys even joke about it. In the past, a formal wedding meant marrying a pure, untouched bride. Now with all the pomp and ceremony, you're just carrying in a divorcee. There are even people demanding that if you're giving a bride price, the woman has to come with something too, like a premarital health check certificate. A lot of guys argue, for the same marriage, you expect the man to do this and that, but the woman doesn't need to do anything? Why even get married? You only demand the man show his sincerity. Honestly, this is also a pushback against sky-high bride prices. Non-virgins aren't wanted anymore. Or non-virgins can't live well. Let me tell you, men who cling to this kind of thinking are ignorant, backward and selfish. You're just a pitiful fool trapped by feudal ideas. I'd advise you not to get married at all. Don't go ruining some innocent girl's life. A woman who's been through a failed relationship, who poured her heart into it only to get hurt. That kind of blow is devastating. If you know about her past, you should feel for her from the bottom of your heart. Share her pain, and bring her more joy. Not look down on her or push her away. Meeting each other isn't easy. Happiness isn't some privilege reserved for men, nor is it a woman's shield of shame. What really matters is mutual understanding and support, growing together, and lifting each other up. Those men still obsessing over virginity will just end up alone in their narrow little worlds, abandoned by the times. You're destined to stay a bachelor for life.
In Hefei's matchmaking market, some men have made it explicitly clear. Only virgins get to set conditions, and a premarital check is a must before marriage. When this video was posted online, caused a huge uproar. Some people criticized it, saying that women today shouldn't be treated as objects for trade or exchange. Instead, we should value their personal charm and character. They argue that modern men focus too much on purity instead of personality, forcing their outdated traditional views onto women. A shameful act. Since ancient times, purity has always been the bare minimum requirement. How has it now become the ultimate standard? If you're asking for a bride price, it's a transaction. So it's perfectly fair for both sides to set demands. I think a premarital check is absolutely necessary. It's like buying a new car from a dealership. If you later find out it's used, wouldn't you feel cheated? Everyone talks about respecting women. But who's respecting men these days? Society has already given women way too much privilege. Enough is enough. Back in the day, a grand wedding procession carried a refined lady from a good family. A formal marriage meant marrying a pure, untouched bride. The traditional 3 letters and 6 rights were for a cultured, virtuous woman. Men marry a wife, not an ancestor to worship. If you're not a virgin, don't ask me for a bride price. I don't know if you've heard, but recently in first-tier cities like Beijing, Shanghai, and Guangzhou, some guys have been saying, if you're demanding a hefty bride price, then I hope you can show me a detailed, thorough premarital health check. These guys feel like, I'm spending so much money to marry you, so either we follow the old ancestral rules, I'm marrying an innocent, untouched girl, or what's the point? I've been a matchmaker in Jincheng for years, and a lot of guys tell me, I'm fine with paying a bride price, but the girl has to be worth it. Can't spend all that money to marry someone who's been with a bunch of other people. It'd make me uncomfortable. They feel that someone who accepts their hefty bride price should be pure and clean. Otherwise, it's no different from marrying a divorcee. Is it too much for a guy to want a virgin bride? This morning at the matchmaking corner, I saw a guy getting scolded by a group of girls. The reason? In his partner preferences. He insisted the girl must be a virgin. He's a 92-born doctor. He said that working in a hospital, he's seen too many messed-up cases. Girls who've had abortions from fooling around, or caught diseases. He can't accept draining his savings to marry someone like that, so he has this requirement. What do you all think? If she's not a virgin, I'm out. Not even considering it. That's a direct quote from a 92-born guy I talked to yesterday. He just broke up with a girl he'd been with for over half a year. They'd reached the point of discussing marriage. And that's when he found out she wasn't a virgin, and had more experience than him. Obviously, her ex must have taught her, right? He couldn't handle it. He said he's still a virgin himself, so he hopes his partner is someone who's been single her whole life too. Honestly, white paper matches white paper. Newspaper matches newspaper. No issue there. But here's the thing. Life's unpredictable, right? Being a virgin doesn't guarantee she won't cheat after marriage. And a girl with some experience doesn't mean she can't be loyal later, right? Course, you're free to stick to your personal bottom line. Do men really care about virginity? Girls these days are pretty open-minded. They think premarital test runs are normal. Some feel it's fine to give their first time to their first love or someone they really like. Post-90s and aughts girls even believe that men don't care about virginity when they marry. And sure, when dating, guys might not mind too much if a girl's a virgin or not. They're adults, and running into a virgin feels like hitting the jackpot. But when it comes to marrying you and bringing you home, they care a lot about whether you're a virgin. It's like opening a blind box. They're really hoping to win the prize. 'Cause no man wants to bring home second-hand goods. So girls, before marriage, you've got to love yourself. Date if you want, but absolutely don't sleep around. Otherwise, the only one who gets hurt in the end is you.
When discussing this topic, I'd like to remind everyone that there are indeed some unscrupulous women out there who exploit men's kindness and emotions for their own gain, even using things like bride prices as a material bargaining chip to achieve their goals. As men, we can't just blindly trust everyone because of societal stereotypes or traditional beliefs. Instead, we should approach every relationship rationally and learn to identify the women who are truly worth entrusting our lives to. We need to be cautious of those who only value material things or see the bride price as a benchmark. Those women might not genuinely love you but instead view you as a pawn or a tool. In such relationships, it's often the man who ends up deceived and taken advantage of. We also need to understand that marriage isn't about fulfilling someone's transactional interests. It's about two people who genuinely love each other and work together toward a shared future. Gentlemen, though we all know the pressures and challenges of life, please remember this. Choosing a woman who's truly trustworthy, grateful, and cherishes you is far more valuable than any bride price. Don't let those with ulterior motives exploit your emotions and kindness, bringing unnecessary pain and trouble into your life. Finding the right path and meeting true love, that's the goal worth pursuing.